Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lin. Namaskar. Coming up in News Hour. PM Modi heads to Japan for the 15th India-Japan Summit. His first meeting with PM Ishiba. And in first summit meeting, that is. And he says that the visit is to give new wings to collaboration and expand scope and ambition of economic and investment ties. Trump criticized for targeting India over Russian oil. Critics say singling out India with tariffs will hurt Americans and strengthen alternative global alliances. Europe and NATO condemn Russia's fresh offensive in Kyiv. The Russian ambassadors to the EU and UK summoned. Britain, France and Germany launched 30-day process to reimpose UN sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to attend the victory celebration in China on September 3. Putin also to attend. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is embarking on a visit to Japan. This will be Prime Minister Modi's 8th visit to Japan and the first summit with Prime Minister Ishiba. The highlight of the visit is the 15th India-Japan Annual Summit, and it drives the agenda of the India-Japan Special Strategic and Global Partnership. DD India correspondent Shubhendu Ghosh files this report.
At the invitation of Prime Minister of Japan, Shigeru Ishiba, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Japan from 29 to 30th August to participate in the 15th India-Japan Annual Summit. This will be Prime Minister Modi's 8th visit to Japan and the first summit with PM Ishiba. The annual summit between India and Japan represents the highest level dialogue mechanism that exists between the two countries, and it drives the agenda of the India-Japan Special Strategic and Global Partnership.
This is a significant visit for several reasons. It's Prime Minister Modi's first annual summit with Prime Minister Ishiba. It is also his first standalone visit to Japan in nearly 7 years. He last visited for the annual summit in 2018. This will be a visit that will be fully dedicated to the bilateral agenda between India and Japan. This is also Prime Minister's 8th visit to Japan since he took office in 2014.
The two leaders will review the special strategic and global partnership between India and Japan, including defense and security, trade and economy, technology and innovation, people-to-people exchanges, as well as discuss issues of regional and global importance. The visit will reaffirm the long-standing special bond of friendship between India and Japan.
India and Japan are trust-bound partners, aiming at becoming the two largest pillars of growth. Growth that is open, rules-based, democratic, the kind of growth that China could ill afford to supply. Prime Minister Modi may still miss his soulmate, the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, but we must go on. And with the present leader, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, both leaders should dream big and think long.
After Tokyo, both Prime Ministers are expected to travel to Sendai, a city known for its semiconductors, in a bullet train. India and Japan are two of the leading democracies in Asia and among the 5 top economies in the world. When the two leaders meet for the annual summit, they will have an opportunity to take stock of the progress made over the years in diverse domains, from security to semiconductors. India-Japan partnership also has significant implications for the Indo-Pacific and beyond. With camera person Anil Thakur, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Tokyo.
As Prime Minister Narendra Modi is heading to Japan, here's a report on the robust partnership between India and Japan.
While India and Japan share civilizational ties, economic cooperation forms the bedrock of their modern partnership. Prime Minister's visit is expected to give a new fillip to India-Japan economic relationship, particularly in the domain of trade, investment and cooperation in semiconductors and emerging technologies. The comprehensive economic partnership agreement between the two nations has significantly strengthened the bilateral trade, with over 1,400 Japanese companies operating in India and 11 industrial townships across 8 states hosting Japanese enterprises. Earlier on Wednesday, PM flagged off the e-Vitara, Suzuki's first made-in-India global strategic battery electric vehicle in Gujarat. These vehicles made in India will be exported to 100 countries. Expectations are high for Indian and Japanese businesses from Prime Minister Modi's visit.
When both our PMs meet, the key expectation is a roadmap for next generation cooperation, especially in clean energy, digital technology and supply chain security. With global uncertainties, both countries can set a model of democratic economic partnership. Strengthening defense and semiconductor collaboration will also be high on the agenda.
I believe the Japan-India partnership is necessity. Prime Minister Modi's visit will encourage more Japanese firms to collaborate with India.
India offers a young workforce and a large market, which supports Japan's economy. Together, our cooperation brings stability and prosperity.
Japan has been a key ally in India's economic growth. Foreign direct investment from Japan has exceeded $43 billion between 2000 and 2024, making it India's 5th largest source of foreign investment. India-Japan bilateral trade totaled $22.85 billion during financial year 23-24. Exports from Japan to India during this period were $17.69 billion and imports were $5.15 billion. Metro systems in Delhi, Ahmedabad, Bengaluru and Chennai and the upcoming Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail reflect the potential of India-Japan economic partnership. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Japan is expected to open up new exciting avenues of growth and investment. In an era of geopolitical uncertainties and tariff diplomacy, India and Japan show the roadmap for democracies to partner and thrive together. With camera person Shailendra Chauhan, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in Tokyo.
When India and Japan share civilizational ties as cultures connect, how does it influence our food preferences? Well, Shubhendu Ghosh gets us this report. He visited an Indian restaurant in Tokyo to find out more.
Food has the magical power to transcend boundaries. Today we are at a popular Indian restaurant in Tokyo to find out how Indian delicacies are making their way into the hearts of the Japanese. This is Nirvanam, an important stop for lovers of Indian food in Tokyo, starting in 2005 as the first authentic South Indian restaurant in Japan, bringing in the diverse flavors of India to Japanese and international audiences.
Japanese, they're very foodie people. They like all the food, especially they want to try the different kind of food and especially curries. But they need less spicy curries. And we introduce lots of South Indian food too. The Japanese people, they like.
Known for its authentic taste, traditional recipes and warm hospitality, Nirvanam has introduced countless Japanese customers to the diversity of Indian cuisine.
I like Indian foods for about 40 years. When I came to this restaurant, I found this restaurant very, very good. I like dal in general. And the most favorite dish is sambar. Yeah, sambar and sambar wada.
Spicy soup, spice curry. Yes, it's fresh for us. Because Japan is only soup, miso soup or soba or udon, so many spices is fresh for us. And this restaurant, the people is so fun and happy, so it's very interesting.
Beyond food, Nirvanam has played an important role as a cultural bridge between the peoples of India and Japan. With camera person Shailendra Chauhan, Shubhendu Ghosh, DD India, Tokyo.
In his departure statement, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that he will attend the 15th annual summit in Japan. During his visit, Prime Minister will focus on shaping the next phase in the special strategic and global partnership, which has made steady and significant progress over the last 11 years. He said that India and Japan would endeavor to give new wings to collaboration, expand scope and ambition of our economic and investment ties, and advance cooperation in new and emerging technologies, including AI and semiconductors. Prime Minister will travel to China from Japan to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin at the invitation of President Xi Jinping. India is an active and constructive member of SCO. During India's presidency, New Delhi introduced new ideas and initiated collaboration in the fields of innovation, health and cultural exchanges. India remains committed to working with the SCO members to address shared challenges and deepen regional cooperation. Prime Minister will also meet President Xi Jinping, President Putin and other leaders on the sidelines of the summit. Prime Minister Modi expressed confidence that his visits to Japan and China would further national interests as well as priorities and contribute to building fruitful cooperation in advancing regional and global peace, security and sustainable development. And to put this all into perspective, we have with us Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, retired, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. Thank you, Ambassador Bhattacharya. Why are, close India-Japan ties important for the Indo-Pacific security architecture? Does it restore some sort of balance?
Well, firstly, it must be recognized that India-Japan ties are very special indeed. These are special because they're historic, they range into various sectors, there is great commonality, and in recent times we found what we call the understanding over the confluence of the seas, and therefore the Indo-Pacific or the maritime domain became one in which we extended the understanding from the Pacific to the Atlantic, to the Indian, and further on towards Africa. And this was an area in which we have multi-sectoral cooperation. In a world that is actually in geopolitical as well as geo-economic flux, our partnership with such a large and prominent player, not only in the economic field, but in the field of technology, as well as, an emerging security partner, is extremely important. In the Indo-Pacific, which was an idea which actually came out during Prime Minister Abe's time and was consolidated, in the early days of Modi 1.0. This was an idea that has now matured to a great extent, right. And there are a range of cooperative activities that are now envisaged under the Indo-Pacific Economic Forum, and of course the Quad. So for us, this partnership with Japan, which is a principal player, is very important.
You did say, of course, Quad. So to what extent has the Quad alliance influenced bilateral cooperation between India and Japan beyond defense?
Well, as you know, the initial idea for the Quad was to have a security initiative. But with the initiative of India and Japan in particular, this was subsequently expanded to a much broader and holistic range of cooperation in development areas, in new technologies, in cyber, and in various other fields. But it does remain a very important aspect for the security domain in maintaining the freedom of navigation in the seas and what we call the free and open Indo-Pacific. So the Quad remains a very important element of that. As you know, in the Quad, which is a partnership between India, Japan, the US, and Australia, apart from that, there are other plurilateral bodies that have also emerged, which include the Philippines in one aspect, the New Zealand and the Koreans in another aspect. So there are a range of possibilities that are emerging, but India and Japan remain at the core of it.
Ambassador Bhattacharya, Japan has been a major investor in India. Now, you did mention the flux in the current times, geopolitics and geoeconomics. Let's say that the times of the Trump era, or Trump tariff era. How is it impacting bilateral trade and investment?
Well, if you look at the investment front, the Japanese have been invested in India for over 100 years. But I think it was really in the last decade or more that we see a quantum leap in the kind of investments, not only in terms of the volumes of investment, but also the scope of investments. And today we are invested in future-oriented industries, including in AI, in robotics, in automotive vehicles, in semiconductors, apart from the original ones, which were largely in the infrastructure sector. And, we have the elite Shinkansen project that is on in India at the moment. And the Japanese have developed with us the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, which is a logistics and industrial hub. So the Japanese have been hugely invested in India. What it does is that in this current reign, in this current time, where there are headwinds on both trade and investment, and also in the supply chains, we need to have very reliable and resilient partners, and Japan, of course, is one of them. The second is the diversification of our partnerships. And again, what you will find is that if there are headwinds in certain sectors, on the trade front or otherwise, or technology, Japan would be a very, very viable partner for that. And finally, when we look at how we shape up our partnership for the future, and this is the kind of collaboration that we have in S&T, in science and technology, research and development, the joint projects, the defense area. These are the kinds of things that Japan will prove to be a very, very important partner again.
Ambassador Bhattacharya, do you see, apart from semiconductors, green energy, digital infrastructure emerging as sectors for economic collaboration? India has strengths here as well, especially in digital.
Well, certainly. The Japanese have done their digital infrastructure in a very uniquely different way, and there is much that both sides can learn from each other in this particular sector. I think the types of cooperation are already underway. There are, working groups that are looking at these aspects. You mentioned about, the other aspect of green energy, and I think that is one in particular where we have huge potential for collaboration. As you know, India has made great advances in solar and biofuels in particular. The Japanese are world leaders in hydrogen, which is another area in which India wishes to make great advances. And our collaborations, which are already ongoing in Tsukuba and in other S&T centers in Japan, I suppose there will be much more of the future kind of things on the green energy that will come about to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels as well as to attain our net zero targets as anticipated.
Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, a former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, thank you for putting all that into perspective for us. Now, moving on to other stories, Russia has launched its deadliest missile and drone barrage on Kyiv in months, striking military and critical infrastructure, while hypersonic missiles ripped through neighborhoods overnight, killing 17 people and wounding dozens. President Zelensky has slammed the attack. He called it proof that Moscow wants terror, not peace. The EU, Germany, France and NATO have also responded with fierce condemnation. The Kremlin has denied targeting civilians and has claimed it seeks peace still. But Ukraine and its allies aren't buying any of it. Here's the report. In the latest Russian overnight drone and missile attacks on Kyiv, major infrastructure and residential buildings were hit severely as the war in Ukraine continues unabated. CCTV footage captured the dramatic moment when Russian strikes with hypersonic missiles hit residential areas in the capital. Described as a massive attack against the cities, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the onslaught, claiming it shows Moscow has no interest in what he called real diplomacy. Authorities say over 20 sites across Kyiv were targeted, with several high-rise apartment blocks and civilian infrastructure damaged. The international community has expressed strong condemnation of the attack. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen voiced her outrage, revealing that even EU diplomatic offices in Kyiv were struck.
This was the deadliest drone and missile attack on the capital since July. And as you can see behind me on the screen, it was an attack also on our delegation. I just spoke with our deputy ambassador, and I'm relieved that none of our staff were harmed.
German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul called for a strong and united European response. He stressed that Putin's war continues to terrorize Ukraine daily.
Putin's war continues to terrorize Ukraine every day. It is crucial that we as Europeans, as the European Union and NATO, stand firmly by Ukraine's side without any ifs or buts. It is good that the US is currently working towards negotiations.
French President Emmanuel Macron, posting on social media platform X, wrote, 629 missiles and drones in a single night over Ukraine. This is Russia's idea of peace, terror and barbarism. The United Kingdom echoed the outrage and summoned the Russian ambassador and expressed concern over the attacks in the capital, Kyiv. NATO chief Mark Rutte also condemned the strikes and reaffirmed support for Ukraine's sovereignty. Despite the deadly barrage, the Kremlin on Thursday claimed it remained interested in pursuing peace talks. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russian forces were targeting only military and related infrastructure, denying deliberate strikes on civilians. He also pointed to ongoing Ukrainian attacks on Russian territory.
The special military operation continues. You can see the attacks on Russian infrastructure and often on the Russian civil infrastructure by the Kyiv regime are also continuing. The Russian armed forces are also fulfilling their task. As I stated, they continue to hit military and military-related infrastructure facilities. The strikes are successful, the targets are being destroyed, and the special military operation continues. At the same time, Russia remains interested in continuing the negotiation process in order to achieve our goals.
As the war drags on, the latest strike marks one of the deadliest nights for Kyiv in months, prompting renewed calls for diplomatic solutions even as violence escalates. The human toll continues to mount in a conflict showing few signs of resolution. Mohammed Absurul Hassan's report for DD India. And Britain's Defence Secretary John Healey on Thursday held talks with Japan's Defence Minister General Nakatani. This happened in Tokyo. In a joint press conference, the UK Defence Secretary Healey, he said that the discussions reflected the fact that partnership with Japan is one of the most important defence and security partnerships currently.
Today we've discussed our deepening cyber and wider defence cooperation. And the UK is proud to be the first European army to have exercised with your forces on Japanese soil. We are proud to be taking our air and our naval cooperation now to new levels.
Britain, France and Germany on Thursday launched a 30-day process to reimpose UN sanctions on Iran over its nuclear program. The three European countries, known as the E3, have accused Iran of failing to meet its 2015 nuclear pact commitments. Many countries have suspected Iran of pursuing nuclear weapons, which Iran denies. Iran will continue diplomacy with the E3, but Iran will not concede under pressure, said a senior Iranian official. The North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will visit China next Wednesday. He's attending a military parade marking Japan's formal surrender in World War II. Invited by the Chinese President Xi Jinping, Kim will join the Russian President Vladimir Putin and 24 other global leaders, mostly from the global south. This parade, one of China's largest in recent years, will feature advanced military hardware, including fighter jets and hypersonic weapons. Western leaders are largely absent, with Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico the only EU representative there.
At the invitation of Chinese President Xi Jinping, 26 foreign heads of state and government will attend the commemorative event. They are Russian President Vladimir Putin, General Secretary of the Workers' Party of Korea, and Chairman of the State Affairs Commission Kim Jong-un.
The North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited a special operation training base, and he emphasized the importance of strengthening the special operation forces and specialized snipers in the armed forces. Earlier this month, Kim had condemned the US-South Korea joint military drills as their intent, he stated, was mostly hostile and confrontational to North Korea. South Korea and the United States, their troops conducted a combined maritime infiltration training exercise near Anmyeon Island, which is in Taein, from August 25 to 27. This drill was aimed to help South Korean and US troops work more closely together at sea and prepare for real-world security challenges in the Korean Peninsula. Ethiopia's government and Nigeria's Dangote Group, they've signed a $2.5 billion deal. It is to build a huge fertilizer production plant in Gode in southeast Ethiopia. Aliko Dangote, who is the president of the Nigerian conglomerate, the Dangote Group, he has said that it is going to be the second largest plant of urea in the world. While the CEO of the Ethiopian Investment Holding said that the overall project will include a pipeline that will be constructed to connect Gode with the natural gas reserve in Kalu and Hilala Reserve.
So today is going to be second largest plant of urea in the world. Compared to our own in Nigeria, the same size. So this is very, very historic, and it is by far even more than what Ethiopia is consuming. But by the time it is ready, I know agriculture is being propelled in Ethiopia on a massive level.
The overall project would also include a pipeline that will be constructed that will connect Gode with our natural gas reserve in Kalu and Hilala Reserve. And the project timeline that we're currently estimating is 40 months from financing to completion.
A violent brawl broke out in Mexico's Senate on Wednesday. The opposition PRI leader Alito Moreno physically confronted the Senate President Fernandez Noronha. This is of the ruling Morena party. The clash, which erupted at the end of a contentious debate on foreign armed forces. So the House, in fact, it turned chaotic as the national anthem was being sung. And let's get you some visuals now of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is departing now for Japan. Be heading to Tokyo. The Prime Minister, in his departure statement, had said that he's going there to attend the 15th annual summit in Japan. And during his visit, the Prime Minister is going to be focusing on shaping the next phase of the special, strategic and global partnership. The partnership has made steady progress over the past 11 years when Prime Minister Modi has been in office. And he said that India and Japan are going to be endeavoring to give new wings to this collaboration by expanding scope and ambition of the economic and investment ties Japan is a huge investor in India in various sectors, mostly in infrastructure, as well as in business and investment and automobiles and several other sectors in India. And advance the cooperation into the new and emerging technologies, which will be including AI and semiconductors. That's what the Prime Minister said in his statement. Now, the Prime Minister will be on a 2-day visit to Japan. This is his first in-person summit with the current Prime Minister of Japan, Ishiba. So still to come here on DD India Newshour. Border guarding forces of India and Bangladesh hold Directors General level coordination conference in Dhaka. India's Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi interacts with representatives of military industries in Algeria. Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India. You're watching DD India Newshour. Our next story. Democrats in the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee, they have hit out at President Donald Trump's decision to impose tariffs on India, saying that this move threatens the U.S.-India relationship. After announcing tariffs on India, which took effect on Wednesday, the Democrats have repeatedly taken on the Trump administration. Dheeraj Das has the report.
As the additional 25% tariff imposed by US President Donald Trump on India came into effect from Wednesday, Democrats in the US House Foreign Affairs Committee have slammed President Trump and his administration over the decision to impose 50% tariffs on India for purchasing Russian oil, saying the move is hurting the Americans. The House committee responsible for foreign policy legislation and oversight said instead of imposing sanctions on China and other countries purchasing large amounts of discounted Russian oil, Trump's move to single out India with tariffs is hurting Americans and sabotaging the India-US relationship. The US House Foreign Affairs Committee panel also cited a New York Times report saying, and I quote, "It would be one thing if the Trump administration had opted to follow through on the threat of secondary sanctions for any country that purchases Russian oil. But the decision to focus solely on India has resulted in perhaps the most confusing policy outcome of all. China, the largest importer of Russian energy, is still purchasing oil at discounted prices and has so far been spared similar punishment." However, the Democrats in the US House Foreign Affairs Committee said that the targeting of India is almost like it's not about Ukraine at all. Early on Wednesday, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that the current India-US relationship is complicated, but the two countries, one the largest democracy and the other the largest economy, will come together at the end of the day. Meanwhile, American economist Richard Wolff has cautioned President Trump against escalating tariff measures on India, saying the approach risks backfiring and strengthening alternative economic blocs like the BRICS. Wolff, a professor of economics at the New School in New York, argued that Washington cannot deal with India the same way it pressures smaller countries.
If you take China, India, Russia, and the BRICS, and you do the same, the total share of world output those countries produce is 35%. So people have to understand that that part of the world is now the rich core of the world economy. we're beginning to see a world, I hate to say it, but it's the truth, in which we have a mouse shaking its fist at an elephant. And after a certain point, that becomes funny, not scary.
India's growth is driven largely by domestic consumption rather than exports, making consumer and business sentiment key to its economic momentum. The US, through India's largest export market with $87.4 billion in goods shipped in 2024, accounts for only about 2% of India's GDP compared with private consumption, which makes up nearly 60%. The Indian government is pushing a Swadeshi or self-reliance mantra to reduce the economy's dependence on exports, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi calling on Indians to be vocal for local and buy Indian goods. Dheeraj Das for DD India.
And Professor Abhijit Das, former head of the WTO Center at the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, now joins us. Professor Das, thanks for being with us. Now, to what extent, have these tariffs, the Trump tariffs, accelerated India's push for self-reliance, Atmanirbhar Bharat?
Thank you, Mark, for having me on your program. The impetus given to Atmanirbhar Bharat by Donald Trump's 50% tariffs cannot be denied. It is a reality that a substantial part of our exports to the United States will take a deep hit. While we might contemplate diversifying to other markets, we must bear in mind that this will take time. And consequently, the way to compensate for the loss of exports to the US market will be by driving up domestic demand. And one way of doing that will be through Atmanirbhar Bharat. So this is a good opportunity for the government, for the industry, to see how best to go down this path of Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Indeed, Professor Das, but the government has already leveraged some of these tariff-induced disruptions to implement structural reforms. The Prime Minister has already announced a possible major reform in GST. We're hoping to boost domestic demand and also reduce export dependence. You did talk about diversification. What is your view? The government's taking the right steps.
You're very right. Diversification is a right step. It will not give results immediately. It will take some time. Diversification requires identifying relevant importing partners, building trade relationships. Those aspects will certainly take time, but we do require patience. Furthermore, if the market diversification strategy is based on specific products, then we do have a fair good chance of success. Of course, the hemming factors will be that many other countries who've been hit by Trump tariffs would be attempting similar strategies. But what takes Indian exports to a different pedestal is in terms of quality. And if we are able to leverage our quality, I have no doubt that we will succeed in our mission diversification away from the US market.
Talking about that diversification, Professor Das, market diversification, FTAs are already in place. We are working on some. Does it help also to create a more multipolar trading order? After all, you were looking at the WTO at one point of time, and now, of course, one big power continues to try and disrupt the whole of global supply chains.
There is no doubt in my mind that the trading order, which is represented by the World Trade Organization, currently is in shambles, but that doesn't mean that the WTO has become irrelevant. US, if we look at some of the bilateral deals carefully, there are elements over there which leave us in no doubt that US remains committed to the WTO. But having said that, we must remind ourselves of what the USTR Jamieson Greer said recently. He said that the United States is creating a new global trading order. This is a juncture where countries from the global south, be it India, South Africa, Brazil, they have to join hands. They have to come up with an alternative to what the US is contemplating or what the US is already doing in terms of crafting new trade rules. If these countries do not get their act together, then I'm afraid the new global trading regime that will emerge might be more unfair, more imbalanced, more tilted against the interests of India and other countries in the global south. So the onus squarely lies on these powers of global south to make sure that they are able to engage meaningfully, effectively in the discussions that will happen around crafting new trade rules.
So what are the kind of opportunities then that, for the South-South cooperation to take place? UAE, Mexico, Africa, helping us, to bypass the US tariffs and also to maintain global competitiveness. After all, that's important at the end of the day.
South-South cooperation has never been important before as it is today. And one very specific mechanism for South-South cooperation is something called GSTP initiative at UNCTAD, whereby developing countries amongst themselves exchange tariff concessions so as to increase market access in each other's countries. This process is being steered by UNCTAD. Unfortunately, this process has become dormant over the past quite a few years. Now is the time to revive this process of GSTP. Of course, there the big problem will be China. Countries might be threatened with getting swamped by Chinese imports if they lower the tariffs to other developing countries. So perhaps if China behaves or agrees to be more practical, more pragmatic by denying itself the benefits of the GSTP concessions, then I do think we have a very realistic possibility, a very important opportunity to deepen South-South cooperation through concrete measures such as under the GSTP framework. And on the other hand, I've already mentioned the possibility of South-South cooperation for crafting new trade rules.
Finally, Professor Das, we've seen textiles, gems, seafood. These are some of our big exports. They've shown adaptability. They've also shown vulnerability depending on the kind of response that we can give. So what's India's long-term resilience going to be built on?
India's long-term resilience has to take into account the following factors. We should not be overwhelmingly dependent on any one particular market, be it US, be it European Union, or be it Japan. So market diversification has to be an important component. The second component has to be quality. We have to compete on the basis of quality. And the third component really has to be price competitiveness. There, the businesses have to play their part. The government has to play its part by seeking to reduce transaction costs or costs that add up on account of infrastructure deficiencies. So a three-pronged strategy, which I have just mentioned, should be the core elements of our long-term resilience in many of these labor-intensive export sectors.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Abhijit Das, former head of the WTO Center at IFT and expert on international trade. Thanks for joining us. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has, as we said earlier, departed for Japan, and he'll be attending the 15th annual summit. And in his departure statement, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "During my visit, we would focus on shaping the next phase in our special strategic and global partnership, which has made steady and significant progress over the past 11 years. We would endeavor to give new wings to our collaboration, expand scope and ambition of our economic and investment ties, and advance cooperation in new and emerging technologies, including AI and semiconductors. The visit will also be an opportunity to strengthen our civilizational bonds and cultural ties that connect our peoples," unquote. Now he will have his first meeting also with the Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba. That's the first summit-level meeting in this during this visit. India and Bangladesh have agreed to curb trans-border crimes during the DG-level border talks by adopting extra precautionary measures such as increasing coordinated patrols, enhancing vigilance. And the agreement came, in fact, it was issued by Indian Border Security Force and Border Guard Bangladesh upon the completion of the 4-day Director General level border conference in Dhaka. Both sides, they also agreed to remain cautious and steadfast to adopt, to adopt measures to stop smuggling through the sharing of real-time information and investigation reports of traffickers, also remaining extra vigilant to curb such crimes. And both delegations also reiterated a zero-tolerance policy, a stance against any armed insurgent groups operating across the border. They've agreed to take the necessary steps to prevent any kind of terrorist activities through real-time information sharing. The Indian Army Chief, General Upendra Dwivedi, is in Algeria, and he interacted with the Algerian Chief of Military Training, Major General Omari. And the leaders, they discussed training methodologies, professional military education, the sharing of best practices and potential exchange programs for officers and cadets. The aim of this discussion was to strengthen institutional linkages between the two armies. The Chief of Army Staff also interacted with the representatives of military industries of Algeria. They focused on avenues of cooperation, and this is in defense production, technology and innovation between India and Algeria. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. It is 11 years to the day that India began the largest financial inclusion drive, the Jan Dhan Yojana. And PV Sindhu rediscovers vintage touch. She enters the quarterfinals of the BWF World Championship.
Welcome to Jaipur.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Rain, floods, wildfires, they continue to wreak havoc across different parts of the world. Now in India, the relentless rainfall has triggered landslides and flash floods in the north of the country. And neighboring Pakistan also faces severe flooding after torrential monsoon rains. Southeast Asia too is grappling with typhoons and landslides. Wildfires are raging on in parts of Europe and North Africa. Here's the report.
Rainfall and wildfire continue to grip parts of the world. In India, flash floods and landslides have caused extensive damage in many parts of North India, including Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, Himachal Pradesh. The rainfall also slowed down relief and rescue operations in the disaster-affected areas. Communications and internet services which were hit in various pockets of North India have been restored, though electricity and water supply issues still persist in many areas. Educational institutes in many cities remain shut too. Incessant rains during the past 3 days also triggered a flood-like situation in various parts of Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab. Several villages across more than 10 districts of Punjab have been hit due to heavy discharge of water from various dams, as water is also being regulated to manage the flow. Multi-agencies, including the National Disaster Response Force, are involved in rescue and relief operations on a war footing. Also, the Indian Air Force continues to demonstrate its commitment to national service by launching extensive relief and rescue missions in response to the rising water levels and devastating floods caused by incessant rains in the Jammu region and northern Punjab. Also, the India Meteorological Department said that above normal rainfall is expected in many parts of north, west and central India at least until September 4th, with generally wet weather likely to last until September 18th. Moving to our neighborhood, Pakistan's Islamabad received warning and subsequently issued an alert for flooding on 3 rivers. Torrential monsoon rains triggered heavy flooding in Sialkot in Pakistan's Punjab province on Thursday, inundating the city and surrounding areas.
As you can see, the river water has overflowed, causing immense loss to the people. Livestock has been swept away and homes have been destroyed. I urge everyone in the district who has the means to come forward and help those affected. Let's support those who have lost their animals and homes.
People waded through the flooded area of Narowal, a town in the Punjab province of Pakistan. The country has been battered by a brutal monsoon season this year, with landslides and floods triggered by torrential rain, killing more than 800 people since June. Meanwhile, a landslide triggered by Typhoon Kajiki has killed at least 2 people and left 5 missing in a village of Thailand. After flooding, wildfires have impacted global weather. Residents were evacuated from their homes in Algeria's Kria Mountains as wildfires spread, but by Wednesday, firefighters had put out the blaze. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, in a major boost to India's semiconductor ecosystem, CG Power has set up a state-of-the-art semiconductor manufacturing unit in Gujarat's Sanand. And the Union Minister for Electronics and IT, Ashwini Vaishnav, he inaugurated the facility along with Chief Minister of Gujarat, Bhupendra Patel. DD India correspondent Meghna Dev spoke to the Union Electronics and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav. Let's listen.
Sir, we are in Sanand, and if to speak in the context of Gujarat, how do you see Sanand becoming a hub of producing semiconductors? Because we are seeing massive plants coming up, and you also said that the Micron plant is as huge and it's taking time to be constructed.
In 2022, Honorable Prime Minister approved the India Semiconductor Mission. As a part of that mission, 10 projects have been approved. Out of those projects, the projects which were approved earlier, the construction is going on at very good pace. One of the plants is CG Power. Yes. Today the pilot line in CG Power has been started. Very soon we'll see the Made in India chip coming out of this plant. Simultaneously, the Keynes plant also is progressing very well, and the Micron plant, which is a very large plant, that also is progressing very well. Overall, the semiconductor ecosystem, which is very important for Atmanirbhar Bharat and Viksit Bharat, that is now taking shape in a very systematic way. We have been able to cover practically every sector: automobiles, telecom, defense, space, power electronics, consumer electronics, display modules. Practically every manufacturing sector today requires semiconductors. And as a part of the semiconductor mission and as a part of these 10 plants which have been approved so far, very happy to share with you that Honorable Prime Minister's vision and focus of developing this industry is now becoming a reality.
Sir, when you're talking about 2030 vision of $100 billion industry in semiconductors, what's being done for the workforce development? Because these are high volume operations.
That's a very good question. Semiconductor manufacturing is a very precision manufacturing. It requires lots and lots of efforts to train people in manufacturing semiconductors. So we have taken multiple steps for that. First, to train the people to work in the clean rooms, that's a different process. For that, we have NAMTech, we have IIT Gandhinagar, we have tie-up with LAM Research, where students are getting trained to work in semiconductor clean rooms in the factory. Then comes the design part. So we have given the latest design tools to 278 universities, where Cadence, Synopsys, Siemens, all these latest tools are being used by the students, and they are designing the chips. And I'm very happy to share with you that 20 such chips designed by students have been now taped out, which means manufactured, in Semiconductor Laboratory at Mohali. So this is a great achievement for the country, because overall globally, if you look at it, there would be very few universities and very few countries which can claim that the students studying there can design a chip and manufacture it.
Well, the world's largest financial inclusion program, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, completed 11 years on Thursday. To mark the occasion, Prime Minister Narendra Modi wrote on X, and I quote him now, "When the last mile is financially connected, the entire nation moves forward together." That is exactly what the PM Jan Dhan Yojana achieved. It enhanced dignity and gave people the power to script their own destiny, unquote. Let's get to some sports news. And India's two-time Olympic medalist and star badminton player PV Sindhu continued her terrific run at the BWF World Championships 2025. Sindhu entered the quarterfinals of the tournament on Thursday. The Indian defeated China's Wang Zhiyi, a second seed and also the number 2 in the world, in the round of 16 match in Paris. Sindhu clinched the contest 21-19, 21-15. India's mixed doubles pair of Dhruv Kapila and Tanisha Crasto pulled off a sensational comeback to upset the world number 5 duo Tang Chun Man and Si Ying Sweet to enter the quarterfinals. The Indian duo, they are now just one step away from becoming the country's first ever mixed doubles medal winners at this coveted event. And the Sports Minister, Dr. Mansukh Mandavia, has felicitated the young footballers of Minerva Academy Football Club in New Delhi. The young squad of 22 players had scripted history in August. They completed a never-before-achieved European treble, winning the Gothia Cup, the Dana Cup and the Norway Cup. And this team remained unbeaten in 26 international matches, scoring an astonishing 295 goals. The Minerva Academy FC was one of the 6 clubs from India that had teams in the under-14 boys category playing during the Gothia Cup 2025. Wonderful there. Now, in a thrilling conclusion to the junior girls category of the 64th edition of the Subrata Cup International Football Tournament, Team Betkuchi High School from Assam emerged victorious by 3-1 over West Bengal's Nadajhar Adibhashi Pashili High School. The final match was held at the Ambedkar Stadium and it showcased the best of youth football. It was attended by an enthusiastic crowd. The final was graced by the Vice Chief of the Air Staff, Air Marshal Narmdeshwar Tiwari. The Arjuna awardees and Olympic gold medalist Dr. Navdeep Singh Para, Navdeep Singh, a para-athlete, was the guest of honor. The day's events commenced with a grand performance by the Air Warrior Drill Team, which was followed by a vibrant cultural performance by students from the Air Force Golden Jubilee Institute.
अच्छा है जब हमारा देश का युवा गेम करेगा और यहीं से टैलेंट हंट होता है जो हमारी नेशनल टीम के लिए बच्चे सेलेक्ट होंगे और इनका जिज्ञासा नज़र आएगी तो ये काफ़ी अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है जहां से हम हमारे देश के अच्छे और बेहतर खिलाड़ियों को चुन सकेंगे। सबसे अच्छी बात ये है कि इंडिया के पास जो टैलेंट है हमारे देश के युवा हैं और हमारे देश के बच्चे हैं। जैसे ही हमारे देश के ऐसे जितने भी हमारे डोमेस्टिक कंपटीशन है जो जूनियर सब जूनियर लेवल के हैं जो हमारे ऑफिशियल्स और हमारे टीम फेडरेशंस को मदद करेंगे हमारे अच्छे और बेहतरीन खिलाड़ी फाइंड करने में।
That's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, get the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn from all of us here. Thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.